I frequently run into people who seem to feel conflicted about their desire to make money selling books. And so this podcast has always existed to push back on the idea that there's something wrong with being a profitable author who makes a living selling our work. Well, today I really am excited to bring you a conversation with guest Heather Kindt. That's kind with a T, or as I like to say, kind to a T. No, I've never said that before. At any rate, this is a phenomenal conversation that really does touch on the idea that the activities that we do surrounding our books should be profitable. We should think about the things that we're doing and how we can make money doing them. Heather goes to a lot of conventions to sell her books, and this has been a topic of great interest to me lately. In fact, I just finished out a library event this past Wednesday, and it was a riotous good time. I promised that there would be no reading there. I did a little Q&A. We served some tasty snacks. I sold $80 worth of books. So it was overall, I think, a victory for a small town library event. But I actually wish, in retrospect, that I had done a little bit of reading because pretty much everybody who showed up had never read the book before. I assumed I was going to be speaking with people who had read the book, but the book club that did read it didn't show up. And maybe that means they didn't love it. I don't know. I have these fears late at night and early in the morning and throughout the day, so pretty much always, that my books are crap. And it doesn't take much to get me spinning and cycling on that fear if I'm not careful. So if you're like me, well, hey, I understand how it feels. The exciting thing is, though, is that these events so far have all been a step in the right direction. I'm starting to learn how to do my book pitch better. I'm starting to learn how to recognize when somebody might be my ideal customer. Though I pretty much talk to everybody who comes by if I'm at an event, and I try to really make a connection with anybody in the audience as long as it's in a manageable size. But I love some of the tips and tricks that Heather will give throughout this interview. Make sure you listen all the way to the end because we get into some really good implications of what might happen if you are showing up to in-person book selling events. It's something you shouldn't miss out on, and it's something I wish I would have started a lot sooner. So, without any further ado, please enjoy my interview with Heather Kindt.
This is TRBM Ammo Edition. If you're a published author and want to make a living writing books and selling them to avid readers, you've come to the right place. There's simply no program that's more successful at driving readers towards the books you've written. So the only thing you have to worry about is writing a great book. And the system within Ammo takes care of the rest. Thanks for listening to this conversation.
I live in a small community of about 800 people. Half
Small
hour. Oh,
Small
yeah. Are you
town, yeah.
small town too?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Right
Do you
here-
like it? Have you? Go
What
ahead.
state are you in?
Nebraska. I'm smack dab in the middle of things. How about you?
Colorado.
Okay. All right. I grew up in Colorado. I was born at Presbyterian St. Luke in Denver. And most of my life I lived in Arvada.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
down by Colorado Springs more.
Gotcha. The focus on the family, the hub of focus on the family,
Yes.
for better or worse. I grew up listening to Adventures in Odyssey, so some positive memories from all of that.
My brother
Uh,
works there.
Oh, okay. Well, there
Yeah.
you go. See, Mr. Whitaker. That's the only name that comes to mind of that particular program. But that's
I
cool.
only
So
know
how,
that 'cause I've been to the kids zone. They have like a kids zone there with a big slide and everything. And Mr. Whitaker is one of the characters, but I never listened to Adventures in Odyssey.
okay, all righty. It would appear that we're possibly like 4 or 5 years apart. So you just missed the tail end of
Okay.
things is my guess. So all right, and we are discussing conventions. So you've done some work going to conventions to sell your books.
Conventions, festivals, craft fairs, lots of
Awesome.
things.
I want to start small and work up to kind of the larger things. Yeah, I want to start small with the smallest events that you go to up to the largest events that you go to, because I think that there is a belief among some authors that smaller events aren't worth the time. And then I think that there's a belief among other authors that they can't go to conventions because they couldn't recoup the cost of a booth. So let's see where the whole process takes us, and decide which place is right for which author, and use your expertise to have a great conversation.
All right, sounds good.
So I'm thinking that like craft fairs are probably the smallest things that you go to.
Yes. So actually, I'm kind of in the busy season right now.
Okay.
Tomorrow, I have a high school holiday bazaar that I'm going to.
Cool. Okay.
And the nice thing about the small fairs is it doesn't cost very much. And I also like that the money goes to a purpose. So, for example, a lot of times when you do the holiday ones at like high schools, it goes to the band or something like that.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
that's cool.
that's really nice for you're giving to something, plus you're hopefully making some money as well and earning new readers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that would be where I would start. And I have this fun conversation with a couple of my friends who were all selling books and newer to like conventions, fairs, and selling our books at events like this, which is cost versus sales. So let's say tomorrow, what are your expectations? What is the cost to go to the high school event for you?
So I work with another author. She sells different books than I do, like different genres. So a lot of times we'll split a booth and we'll just say, I'll ask them, what do you like to read? And if they don't say fantasy or romance, they say like more mystery suspense. I'll say, oh, you'll love Allison's books. So we split the cost of the booth a lot of times. Sometimes they make us get our own booth. But so like for tomorrow's, it's about $50 a piece, and we get a corner booth.
Oh, wow. Okay. And how many people do you expect to see at the event? Do you think?
They're expecting about 3,000. They're hoping for more, but about 3,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is way bigger than the high school events you would get here.
Well, there's only 800 people in your town, you said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we would have to have 3 of my town show up.
Right.
Oh, that's great. Okay. So you're going to have about 3,000 people show up. And then how many books is a successful event for you? What do you need to sell at that kind of an event to feel like, okay, that was worth it? Is it break even? Do you need to have a profit? Do you feel like those readers will eventually buy more of your books? And so if you take a small loss, it's not a big deal. How do you factor in the math?
Normally I like to make a profit just because I'm a teacher during the week. So I'm giving up my weekend to do this.
Absolutely.
And, it's also giving up some of my writing time. And so I've had 2 events so far this fall, 3 events. 2 of them I say were okay. And I made about minus the cost of the books, minus the cost, and you have to minus these things out of this, the cost of the table, around $200. I didn't feel like those were successful.
Okay.
Just because my time, to put into it, plus lugging the books. I've been trying to do more Colorado-based things so that I have a place to stay and I don't have to pay for hotel overhead as well. Then I had one last weekend, had a lot fewer people. It was interesting. It was called the Harry Potter Festival. And I actually made over $300 at that one. So I felt like that was a little more successful. And plus I talked to a lot of people because there was fewer people. People came up to me and had conversations, which was really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. I was just hearing from my friend Lydia that they do a Harry Potter convention in Atlanta that she was going to for a little while and really enjoyed it. Similar feeling. I think she even said it was about 3,000 people who showed up. And so she's like, sometimes we take a loss at that particular one, but the community's so amazing.
Yeah. And a lot of the people who go to that are readers.
Yeah.
If you go to a craft fair, it's hit or miss. It depends. And sometimes when there are readers, they get excited to see books.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's not something crocheted or knitted or candles. It's books. And they get excited.
I've been thinking lately, and so tell me if this is off base, just because I am the kind of person, I have the entrepreneurial gene or spirit, whatever it might be. And so immediately when I see something, I always try to think, what other things can I do with this? You say that you're going to this event with another author friend, and I bet that's a common thing for you. I've been wondering, would it work if you found someone else who went to conventions and fairs and different events like this, who didn't actually write, like somebody who did crochet or somebody who did paintings or something, and so you can still get into Artist Alley, but you're not necessarily competing with them to be like, oh, you stop here to get books, now you have to choose whose books you get. Have you ever thought about that, or am I overthinking it?
No, I think that's an awesome idea. So I have actually brought some of my nieces. She does 3D printing, like dragons and things. Cool. So I brought those to Fan Expo last year. So it was kind of neat to have something different on the table that might draw people in. And then my co-author, she does crochet little animals and things that like dragons and stuff that go along with her books. And so that kind of draws people in as well. So I think that would be a really good idea.
Yeah, you have maybe a synergy if the things kind of feel similar, so people come over and look at both things. They might buy from both of you, whereas I could see having multiple authors at one booth, it does become very much of an either or. And then I say that I'm try to pride myself on always embracing abundance. There's more than enough readers for all of us.
And we also find that people think we're selling other people's books. Yes. Because I have 14 books and Allison has 8 books. So it's a lot of books there. So they think and then all of a sudden they're like, it dawns on them and they're, oh, you're the authors?
Yeah, exactly.
They're like wholesaling other people's books or something.
Yeah. Boy, that would be a tough road. I'm here to tell you, I have a spot in my heart for every bookmobile out there, but that's essentially what you'd be. And boy, oh boy, that would be a lot of work.
It would.
All right. So with 14 books, that leads into, I want to try to keep this structured. I'm not a structured thinker, unfortunately. With 14 books, was there a point where you thought, I have enough titles that events are going to be a good fit for me? And what would you say to somebody who's never done an event before, is thinking about it, and like, how many books do they want to have out before they show up?
I think the more you have in series really helps.
Yeah.
So the person I sell with, she doesn't have a lot of series. She has one book that has a book that can go with it. And then she has like a 3-book sci-fi series that's young adult, but she doesn't really have a lot of series. So I tend to sell more just because I have a 4-book series and then I have 2 3-book series. And 2 of my series are connected. And so sometimes they buy both series, and that really helps.
What is author marketing mastery through optimization, you ask? I'm going to tell you. It's the best way for us authors to make a living selling our books. Are you tired of hearing gurus tell you your book is only good enough to be a lead magnet for services? Are you tired of feeling like you have to be a slave to social media and then frustrated when that time doesn't actually help you sell books? I was too, until I found Ammo. Ammo is the only program that reliably produces results, and it works for anyone. Is it hard work? You bet. Do you have to overcome some of your own prejudices to make Ammo work for you? Absolutely. But rather than being another program that rah-rah shish-goom-bahs tries to get you emotionally excited only to offer unclear methods, Ammo shows you how to design profitable ads step by step through a unique, never-before-tested formula. The founder, Steve Piper, is a data-loving, formula-driven author who escaped the kingdom of Amazon to build a platform for himself where he sold directly to his readers and built a loyal following. With Ammo, you know who's reading your books, how to contact them, and what they want to read next. If you've always been frustrated with Amazon's wall of mystery, of not knowing who's reading your books, of losing 50 to 70% of the hard-earned money you make through book sales, Ammo solves all of those problems by putting you in the driver's seat and showing you how to fulfill your books directly to your readerships. Click the link in the show notes to learn more. Calling all self-published authors. If you live in the United States and you've always wanted to see your books in bookstores, this may be the most important ad you'll hear in 2023. Listen carefully. No matter where you are in your publishing journey, it's not too early to position yourself to pursue brick and mortar bookstore distribution. But if you're a self-published author, you've probably heard getting your books in stores is next to impossible. That's no longer the case. For just $5, you'll receive a lifetime membership to the Self-Published Author Co-op. When you join, you'll have access to a members-only community with a detailed roadmap on how to get your books ready for bookstore distribution. Joining our community does not guarantee bookstore distribution, as there's a limited availability each month to be a featured author. And that's why the cost of a lifetime membership is less than a cup of coffee. Whether you're just about to publish your first book or you're selling thousands of copies a month, if you don't have your books in bookstores, the Self-Published Author Co-op is the easiest, most efficient way to get national distribution of your books. Click the link in the show notes to join now.
My first event that I ever did was with a publishing house that I was with. It was the Decatur Book Festival. I had two books.
Okay.
I still sold a lot, but did it cover airfare? Did it cover hotel? It was a great experience. It was awesome. But with two books out, you don't really, I would start small.
Yeah. Okay. So you do feel like you can get to an event with two titles and still make a profit if you're being smart about where you're going and you don't have a lot of overhead to get there.
Sure. I was at Fan Expo this summer and the author next to us had two books. She also sold a little bit of jewelry that kind of went along with her books, but she definitely made a profit. She really did well. And I think it was just her whole package that she had.
Yeah.
She was just really... you could tell what her brand was and people were drawn to that.
Yeah, that's very cool. I just did Cincinnati Comic Expo with David and Lydia Scherer. They're fairly active in the 20K community, and I'm not as active. So if I just use the wrong term for it, that's how active I actually am. But that's where you and I met each other. I don't even remember exactly. I asked a question about conventions, and your answer really stood out to me as being just informed and really kind and generous. When I was at Cincinnati, there was a little bit of a scuffle between David and Lydia and the guy at the table next to us. He felt like at some points we were stealing his customers.
Wow.
And so that was the first time that I really thought about the idea of etiquette at these conventions. And so it fits really well into what you were just saying. You were right next to this lady with two books who did a good job and had a good brand. Are you thinking a lot about the people you're next to and being good neighbors? What kind of thought process goes into that so that you make sure you're being an assertive salesperson, but allowing everybody else to really enjoy your presence?
It generally comes up mostly at bigger conventions. Like I said, at the craft fairs, a lot of times we're the only books there or we're separated from the other people with books. And so, yes, we are thinking about that. I don't try to grab customers from the people next to me.
Yeah. And I don't think we did either, but
Usually they're coming down the lane and they'll look at everybody's books if they're really interested in books. And they'll ask about if it's something that stands out to them. The guy to the right of us at the last Fan Expo sold like horror comics. So he was very different than what we sold. And so his customers generally didn't gravitate to our books and vice versa.
That's a good place to ask a question that I have been wondering about. I want to try craft fairs because there was such a robust response to my question in that Facebook group. And a lot of people said craft fairs are a great place to make money. And a lot of people felt like much better than conventions. So my concern is that my books are pretty dark, pretty gritty mysteries. And I'm worried if I go to a craft fair that it's not going to be a good fit for that audience. Do you think that's something to be concerned about?
I think there is a variety of people who go to everything.
Yes.
So we have people who come up to us and say, do you have any smut? Basically, they just flat
that's
out.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then we have people who come up and I say, well, what do you like to read? And they're like, horror. well, sorry, we don't have any horror. I said, the closest is Allison, who's like a paranormal mystery kind of thing. So, there are a variety of people that come.
That's awesome. That's good to hear.
Yeah. Our my best-selling event is actually a festival, a spring festival in a small town in Colorado.
Okay.
And not too expensive to go, maybe $100. And I made close to $1,000 this last spring.
That's awesome. A 10 times return on your investment. That's really cool. Okay.
Going into the bigger expos, my partner decided not to do it next year.
Okay.
The one in Denver is going to be 4 days. It's usually 2 or 3, but it's going to be 4, and it's over the 4th of July. So I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But she decided not to because she doesn't sell fantasy or sci-fi, and she doesn't make as big of a profit.
Okay.
So I purchased the whole table on my own. So we'll see how I do.
Yeah. Well, just let me know. I'll split the table with you. I'll be on down there and I'll replace the mysteries.
The amount I made this past year doubled what the whole table cost.
Awesome.
So hopefully with a whole table and I can spread out more, people can see my things better. So
yeah. David and Lydia bought 2 tables. So at Cincinnati, it was $250 per table. So they spent $500 to have 2, I think they were 8-foot tables, maybe they were 6-foot tables, but either way, we had a pretty long spread. And I thought it was really cool because you do have such a long time that people are moving past you looking at things, that you really get an opportunity to engage a lot.
Yeah.
So
the other thing is I know a couple of authors who buy the premium space. They buy like the places where people who sell t-shirts and sell all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And they have the money and they make the overhead that they can afford that.
Yeah.
But they've had to build up to that.
Absolutely.
Like I just bought a second banner for behind my table because I need to do Fan Expo by myself next year. And
Where is Fan Expo, by the way? I should have asked earlier, but.
So they have Fan Expo all over the country, but the one that I do is in Denver.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. Sorry I interrupted. So you're getting your second banner.
Tens of thousands of people come to that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a second banner. It's been a slow build. Like I keep adding to my display. I've bought different shelves and I bought there's like a banner, more of a banner or tablecloth that goes over the front of my table with my name and what genres I write. And Allison has bought those as well. So that's just, it's just a slow build.
Yeah.
And I use my profits to buy that. I also use my profits for editing and for book covers.
Yes.
So that's
nice. I've got a bid out for a book cover right now, and one of them is about 3 times as expensive as the other one, but I really like the expensive one. I'm trying to tell myself that I should do it. But yeah, it's cool to have those kind of areas where you're like, all right, I make a bunch of money at this convention and I can sink that into the next book. You hit on a couple things I want to touch on. So the first is I'm going to my first event in 2 weekends. So not well, obviously it's not this weekend. It's next weekend. And we have tablecloths. We've got some stuff, but I really don't have a ton. I don't even have a banner stand or anything. Have you seen people do that before? Should I expect to get crushed because I don't have the tools I need?
So I did it's called the SoCo Comic-Con in Pueblo, Colorado, a few weekends ago. And there were a couple authors there. They just had a table, their tablecloth, and their books on book stands at their table. I mean, they said they did okay. Yeah. They did okay. It depends how talkative you are and if you can pull people in to discuss your books. And I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like to pull people in because I am a little more introverted. I like to pull them in with the visual.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
And then I start a conversation when they come in. Sometimes when people are passing, I'm like, and they look like they're interested, I'll say, oh, what do you like to read?
Sure.
Try to pull them in.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I think is important to have are, like, I use Vistaprint to get like postcards with my books on them. And I have one for each series. Then there's a QR code on the back so they can go directly to my page to order the book. And that way I get some online sales after the event as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you notice a bump after an event in sales
Usually
typically?
I do. Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Okay.
I use Facebook to advertise it's largely my ebooks. And I've been quite successful, especially of late. But it's really funny. Everybody I hear from when you're talking about direct sales says you really have to get to a certain amount of advertising dollars before you see cross traffic effects on Amazon. And so I can say for sure, I don't really see any cross traffic on Amazon yet. I'm spending right now just over $50 a day on Facebook and recouping that plus some almost every day. But yeah, that anytime you can get cross sales from an event, that's a really great thing. That's like doubling your money kind of.
Right. Exactly. I think that it's really important to have those cards because some people don't like to read physical books and some people like audiobooks. They'll ask me about audiobooks as well.
Have you produced all of your books in audio?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Just one of my series that when I had it under the publisher, they produced that for me.
I gotcha. Okay.
It's expensive.
It's really, yes, absolutely. Yeah. I'm running a Kickstarter right now for the third book in my series. And I've already got the audiobook scheduled to be produced. But yeah, it's $4,000 to do the title with the lady I'm working with. She's a vision. I mean, nobody else could be the voice of the character, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It is hard to look at that though and just be like, okay, I know I'm going to recover this and much, much more when you pay a bill of that size. I mean, you can get a used car for $4,000.
Exactly.
So, okay. So we've talked about you're going to the high school event. You're expecting to see 3,000 people. I have a good idea of what your setup is. You like to share tables, but you're in a position where maybe now you might be doing more tables by yourself. What's your radius? Let's go there before we get to the big events. How far out will you travel to go to an event? And what are the kind of checklist items that you say, I'm not going to go to the event unless?
Okay. So when I first started, like I said, I went to Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in Colorado. We went to Albuquerque Comic-Con.
Awesome.
We did that for 2 years. We did it the year before COVID, like right before COVID started. And then we did it another time, but we found like the overhead is too much, just driving all the way down there, getting a hotel. Sure. So right now we've kind of centered ourselves on our home state and just finding events here.
You have such a big population in Colorado at this point. You're not going to run out of readers anytime soon, I don't think.
Denver is usually where we'll go to.
As an aside, do you enjoy Denver?
Do I enjoy it? Like doing
events? It's a place to go.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I like Denver a lot. It's probably the one thing I miss about living in Colorado is visiting Denver. It's a good city. There's
my kids really are in college now in Fort Collins, so we'll go through Denver quite a bit. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. My parents, my dad and his wife live in Loveland.
Okay. So really close.
Yeah, very close to Fort Collins. Yeah, it's a good area too. But there's just a good feel about Denver as a city. It's probably changed a lot since I lived there, but I always enjoyed it. And this is not about conventions, but did you hear that the Tattered Cover is filed bankruptcy?
I did.
Yeah.
They're closing the store in Colorado Springs.
Oh, yeah. I have so many good memories. My mom would take me there and we would browse around the books. And she would sit us down on they always had these just really great, cozy, comfy armchairs. She would sit us down. She would read the Beatrice Potter books, or there's this
sad.
Cat. It's awful.
Closing those small bookstores, when you think about it.
Absolutely. They're such a staple in Denver.
That's Amazon and the internet, it's taken over the world.
It is. It is. So you're staying local to Colorado to try to cover the overhead. When you go to a larger event, what are the things that you think about in terms of, let's do some practical questions too. How early do you have to apply for these things? Do you have to have like a really standout application to get accepted, or is it first come, first serve? What's the back end of the process look like for those events?
So it really depends on the event. So like when I do Fan Expo, they give you the opportunity to sign up for the next year right then, just so that you get in support. I don't remember how early we signed up for it the first time and got accepted. They do have an artist alley. So that is, if you are an author, you're considered an artist. So you can get a cheaper table in that area.
Okay.
And then with the craft fairs, like I said, it really depends. Some people are begging for vendors, and other people you have to go through a vetting thing. There was one high school that rejected us because they said we only want handmade things, and they don't consider us crafting our words handmade. So anyway.
You're like, what am I doing with my fingers?
I know exactly. But then there's a pretty big event called the Cheyenne Mountain Craft Fair that we're doing in December. And we had to apply like in the summertime for that one because they have a lot of people who want to get into that one.
So it really depends on the size.
It really does, and how established they are, because there are some really established events out there.
Yeah. Dumb question. Do you have to pay like right when you apply? So in the example of Fan Expo, when they say you can sign up right now, do you actually have to pay them to get your booth, or is okay?
Which
so
is
that
nice. It's already paid for now. I just paid for my earnings from the event.
Yeah, so exactly. And that is nice. Yeah.
Only one event that I've been to, the one I did last weekend, they said pay when you come.
Okay.
And then the other thing you have to think about is taxes and having a special event license.
Oh, okay.
So Colorado
special event license. So does it depend on the state then maybe?
Maybe. Colorado has a special events license, and so you can go online after you do the event and you pay your taxes that way. But then some cities and places say, well, you have to pay us separately, then you pay through that. Wow. Other places will say, we'll just take the money from Colorado and you pay it.
Yeah. Some people will just come along and be like, hey, do you want me to, take your money right now? And you're like, okay, I guess so.
And they make it difficult. It's like, I don't even understand how to pay this.
Wow. I didn't know about that. So I'm going to have to do some more research, because I imagine that you don't necessarily know if that's everywhere you go. I didn't hear anything about that from the last one that I did. So I'm assuming that it must be place to place.
Well, I always thought at first that you just pay it on your taxes at the end of the year. Like I would just count it up and now I've learned.
Yeah.
Like the one that I do in Canyon City, they collect the taxes right there.
Okay.
Which I love, because then you just do it. You just fill out the paperwork and pay it instead of having to figure out all the online systems.
Yeah. So I can neither confirm nor deny this, but I may know people who when they accept cash sales don't charge tax because they don't plan to pay tax. I was a server when I was young, and I never paid taxes on my cash tips, so I can understand the thought process there.
And they technically don't know how much you made.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Organizers don't say, okay, how much did you made? We're going to report it to the state. They don't ask you that.
Yes. Yeah, that is really interesting. I want to do a lot more research on that, because those are the kind of sneaky gotchas that can depend, or determine whether you're going to be profitable doing something or lose money. And so, like I said, for me at this point in my life, with the size of readership I have, I'll pretty much go anywhere if I'm convinced I can break even.
Right.
So,
yeah, but you have to take into account all those things like hotel, food, airfare, whatever.
Yeah. So after the event has happened, I'm assuming that you're collecting email addresses when possible. How important is it to get contact information? And then what is your follow-up for any event that you do to try to keep those customers warm and engaged?
Very good question. That's something I should be doing. Okay. I know I could have a email sign up list. I have had in the past, like pictures of some of my books that I give away with QR codes on it. So one of my series, I have a prequel novella. And so I had the QR code right there, and they can click it and then they can order that, and I'll get their email that way. But I haven't done a lot of follow-up. I think that's a good idea. I like that.
It's something I'm trying to get better at. So what I do right now is, because I have a limited number of titles, I pre-sell 2 of them to start with. So if you buy my ebook package, you get the first 2 books. The third will be out in a matter of weeks now. But you buy 4, 2 of them are pre-release. And because of that, I've never really focused on that follow-up email because like I don't have anything else to sell you.
Right.
I think I should have been doing it differently, because what I do see is that a number of people are literally buying on impulse. So they see my ad, they click my ad, they scroll, they identify like this looks like my kind of book. They buy it. They continue to scroll on Facebook for a certain amount of time. And by the time they're done, they move on to something else. And those books will sit in their inbox unread. And so it makes so much sense to follow up and be like, hey, wanted to check and make sure you were able to download your books okay. If not, use this, get them downloaded, and really like engaging, I think, in a helpful way to serve them, but also so that they keep thinking about you. I need to do better on that. Do
So
you have?
you're
Go ahead.
using Pixels then, right?
Yes, I do use a Pixel. Yep, and I do capture their contact information. I use a Shopify store, so I capture their information there as well. And it's really efficient and it's quick. When you can spend advertising money, you can build a readership pretty quickly, fairly passively. The learning curve is horrible though. When you're losing money and you're watching the money just go away, it's
Oh
like
my
panic can set in such a real way. But once you get it stabilized, it's very nice.
Huh.
So
Yeah, I've thought about moving to my own online store.
yeah,
I'm working on a new series now, and I was thinking of experimenting with that one to go wide
yeah,
because I haven't gone wide yet.
okay, yeah,
It's more of a fantasy series. My romance series, I think romance really does well on Kindle Unlimited.
mhm.
So, but I was thinking of trying to move that direction
Yeah,
and see how
absolutely.
it goes. But I know there's a lot of learning curve to it, like you said.
There is a lot of learning curve, yeah. So it's definitely worth it. I would highly recommend going direct. There are some nice things about it once you get going. Let me say 2 things, and we're really talking about you and festivals, so I'll get back there. But there are 2 things to keep in mind: is that a lot of the sales pitch for being a direct sales author is that you keep 90 to 97% of your profits, because there's no Amazon taking their bite out of it. But the reality is, just like you said with the taxes, I pay BookFunnel a certain amount of money to have the kind of subscription where I can get emails there and have multiple titles and all kinds of different stuff. I pay Shopify every month to have a store hosted there. I pay Facebook a ton of money in ads. And so when you think about all of the different things that come along with this, I think the truth is about this is that you own your audience. That's the real win, is that you own your audience. Going through Amazon, you don't have any clue who bought your book, and it's very difficult to capture that information. Amazon has intentionally made it as vague and unclear as possible. So
That makes sense.
How many events do you go to a year? And is it something that you want to scale up to the point where you would leave teaching, or is teaching part of your passion?
I would say about 10 events a year right now. I would love if I could make enough money on my books. I've been teaching for 27 years, so
Wow.
it gets tiring.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I probably have about, I don't know, 6 years left in
Okay.
teaching. My husband's 11 years older than me, and so he's hoping to retire pretty quick here, and he's also a teacher. And I don't want to have him going off doing fun stuff, and I'm still working.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the
Yeah.
good news is I think it's really possible, especially with 14 titles. I think that you're positioned. I wouldn't be surprised if you could make that transition within the next year, especially if you are thinking about dabbling in direct sales. You might be able to make that leap. And then what you do is you and your husband just start traveling around in your RV and hitting conventions on the way. Then all of your gas money is taxable. You can just do a write-off on it. All of your
Well, the thing is,
hotels
he's
are
a
write-offs.
photographer, so he can sell his photography at conventions, and I'll sell my
Exactly.
books.
Yes, exactly. Tell him he needs to quit his job today. And Christmas break, you're going to come down with a mysterious illness and just not be able to come back to school. So sorry, kids.
Sorry, but my kids are in college. I can't do that right now.
There you go. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
No, I think about it a lot. I would love to right now just get on the road and go to every convention I could find. But yeah, I've got a 11, 10, and an 8-year-old. So
It doesn't work too well.
It doesn't work too well. No, you
But
got to
that
pick
would
and
be
choose.
awesome.
Yeah, it would be. I love this thing. You've been writing for quite a while. So one thing I think is important is in the beginning, you made it abundantly clear that making money is of value to you. There are a lot of authors out there, and I don't know their reasons behind it, who say, if I just, if one person loves my book, then I'll be happy. If one person feels like the book changed their life or moved them deeply, then it's a job well done. How would you respond to that idea?
I think they're lying.
Yeah, so do I.
Honestly. I
Yeah.
mean, I love when readers reach out to me and tell me how
Yes.
much they love my books. They want to hear the next one. They want, I love that,
Yeah.
and that is important to me as well.
Hmm.
But if this is my passion and I want to do this full time, I have to make a living off of it as well. I
Yeah,
mean, right
absolutely.
now I haven't been doing well this fall, but normally I write about 500 words a night
Okay.
and 1,000 to 2,000 on the weekends if I don't have
Oh, that's
something.
great.
Like this weekend, I won't be doing that because I have a
Yeah, exactly. You'll be going
yeah.
to an event. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I do.
And so that means I release probably about 3 books a year.
Mhm. That's great. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great because when you do the math on that, that is seems really achievable.
Well, I
Um,
have the summer too.
oh, that's true.
In
Okay.
the
So
summer,
you
I
can
can
kind
write
of
a little bit more.
pump up yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. This last week, I've been working on a project that has kept me away from writing quite as much. And I mean, I've just been putting in stupid hours. I don't really like to have my identity tied up in hard work or anything, but I actually do enjoy hard work. So there are seasons where I can really get into workaholic mode. I've been writing late at night to make sure I'm getting my words in. Um, but yeah, it feels good to know that you can write a certain number of titles every single year and you don't run out of stories to tell. Your quality doesn't suffer. There's a lot of myths around this whole profession that I think people give into. Do you have any formal education in writing, or how did you get started? Did you decide that this was something you wanted to do and just worked at it and built the craft, or what was your process like there?
Pretty much. I remember when I was in 5th grade, my teacher identified me as a good writer. So she put me in the
Mm,
writers club and we
yes.
wrote this book together as students from different schools. I still have it, so it's fun to read how lousy it is to my kids in my
Yes.
class.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but then I didn't really do anything with it other than, I got my education degree, I got a sociology
Mhm.
degree,
Okay.
and got my master's degree in teaching reading. When I was doing that, it was
Oh, wow.
probably, I graduated in 2008,
Okay.
and it was about the time when Twilight was out,
Hmm.
about a little bit before that. And I was reading those after I finished my master's degree.
Yeah.
And I was turning in my papers for my master's. And some weeks I was just rushed just because I
Hmm.
had 2 toddlers at home. I
Yeah.
was working full time, so I had to do on the weekends. And I was like, okay, I got to get this paper done. It's not as good as my papers usually are. And I would still get an A. And I'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I'm kind
Right.
of good at this writing thing. And
Yeah.
then I was reading Twilight and I was like, oh, I could create my own world.
Hmm.
And so that's where I started writing my first book. And I
Fantastic.
happened to have a year that I took off from teaching. And
Hmm.
my daughter was in preschool. And so I'd take her to preschool, I'd go to the library, and I would write.
Mm,
And
it's the
some days I'd
best.
have to substitute teach, but
Hmm.
some days I would just be able to pick her up from preschool. She'd come home, take a nap, and
Yeah.
I was reading The Hunger Games then. And
Yeah.
so it just those books were really inspiring me to create my own worlds.
Hmm.
So that's
So,
what
and I could have asked earlier, but in terms of writing, it sounds like you do sci-fi, or excuse me, fantasy mostly, maybe a little bit of sci-fi, but is it focused on the YA readers, young adult, emerging, anything like that, or is it?
So my first 3 series are focused on young adult, 16
Gotcha.
plus. Um,
Okay.
then I have a series of contemporary romance retellings.
Oh, cool.
So that the second book I actually wrote was one of those, and it won an award, and that's actually what spurred
Awesome.
me into writing because the author who put the contest out, helped me to publish that book.
Yeah.
And
That's very cool.
now it's been renamed and rebranded with the other books in that series.
Okay.
And then The book I'm working on right now is more of an adult fantasy, like
Cool.
young adult fantasy.
Yeah. Okay. Do you
Not
have
like
a
teenage, but
Sure. You know
yeah.
what I think, and you had mentioned the Harry Potter convention, but Harry Potter is this amazing thing that I think shows a lot of us authors, readers, people who enjoy great stories, that something that might be labeled YA really transcends anything. It's ultimately all it comes down to is the age of your hero. If your hero is a young adult, then it's probably going to be marketed as YA. And I love the scene in the movie. I don't remember if it's in the book, and I should because I've read all of the books multiple times. But when Ron's mom says, "You bitch," I think that is a really fantastic moment where it does transcend what Harry Potter had been to that moment, and says like, "Hey, there's going to be a little bit of edge to this and a little bit of grit and darkness." And I thought that was really
And kids grew up with it. It starts,
exactly.
with
Yeah.
what is he, a 13, 11-year-old Harry, and
Mm-hmm.
and they grow up with it, and the
Yeah.
kids mature, and you're probably maturing as a reader as you're reading it.
Yeah, absolutely. She did a great job with that. Stephen King posted yesterday that her new book, I don't remember, but it's from the Robert Galbraith. Her writing is Robert Galbraith is really, really good, apparently. So I'm going to try to get my hands on it. I've not read any of her adult work. Have you, by any chance? I know this has nothing to do with
I have
craft fairs.
not. In fact, I
Okay.
bought one of Stephanie Meyer's other books
Mm,
called, I don't know, The Patient or something. I don't know, remember what it's called.
yeah.
I have it on my bookshelf, but I still haven't read it. I
Yeah.
read her other one. There was can't remember the name of that one either. She had another
Okay.
one that came out after Twilight that I read, and there was a
Yeah.
movie for it too.
We don't talk about it as often, but it probably is true for a lot of authors as well. Like J.K. Rowling, I think, had an incredibly difficult time breaking out of Harry Potter. I think that the orbit for that book is so strong. People would just wish she'd keep writing it. And I imagine the same is true for, I don't remember the author's name for the Hunger Games, but and Twilight as well.
Collins.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be hard, if you have a breakout like that.
Yeah.
For people to identify you with something else.
Yeah. Curious, and then we can start moving toward wrapping up. When you sign up for any kind of craft event, fair, what do you do inside of the event? Do you really make a concerted effort to meet other people, walk the aisles at any point, trade business cards, build relationships, or do you really stick to your booth? What's your idea behind that? I guess terrible way to ask a question.
It really depends on the event. If it's more where there's more authors, I probably would walk around more. I think if it's a craft fair, I might be tempted to spend my money that I'm making, and and I don't really want to do that because this is a business venture for me. Allison tends to do that more. She'll say, "I'm going to go for a walk and look around the other booths, and I'll hold down the fort," but other vendors come to me and they talk to me about things, and they'll maybe take a card. But if it's more, like leaning towards books, I might tend to do that more so they meet other people and network.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. It's this is a newer idea to me, but I've been thinking when I go to the book fair this coming weekend, I really want to make sure that I do get around, and I don't have business cards at this point, but I was thinking maybe I can put a rush on some business cards and meet some of those people. Because what I'm noticing is I run into a lot of more serious authors like yourself who naturally start to surface by the way that they engage with the world. And I have to imagine if you're taking the time to go to a book fair, any kind of expo, convention, you're pretty serious about what you're doing. And those are the people that we want to have relationships with. I don't know what comes of it, but I think having those connections and people knowing each other and seeing each other out in the world matters. And I am coming from a place where when I was first writing, I was so saturated in desperation to be validated and recognized. And so every time that I would meet somebody, I was really in this horrible mindset of what can they do for me?
Mm-hmm.
And it's horrible. So I want to change that. And I think if you're at a book fair, you don't think that at all about somebody. You just say hey, we're on this journey together and you take it seriously. So I want to make sure that we're going in it together.
I also like to walk around and see how they're doing things differently than me. Oh, Like I have little lights on my table now because I saw someone else put little lights and I think, oh, that's cool, or there's this one guy, he does like these cool maps. He only has one book out, but he like sells his maps of his book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really neat things that he does.
Yeah.
Two cool stories that I have real quick.
Yeah, please.
One was the Decatur Book Festival. A woman came up to me with her daughter and she's like, yeah, I'm shooting a TV show here in Atlanta. And my daughter wanted to come over and see the book fair. And she was looking at one of my books and she seemed really interested in it. Nothing ever became of it, but she told me that she was from Los Angeles and she was a television producer, basically. And so she was interested and this looks really interesting. So she bought one of my books. Nothing came of it, but who knows?
Oh, that's awesome though. That feels so good.
The other one was at the Southern Colorado Comic-Con. There was this guy came up to me and he was looking at one of my books as a Belle retelling Beauty and the Beast. And he was looking at it, he goes, oh, is this Beauty and the Beast? I said, yeah. And he goes, he points to his hat and he goes, I was Chip. And I was like, oh, like in a play or something, So we're talking a little bit more. And I said, so what play were you? And he goes, no, I was Chip in the original Beauty and the Beast movie.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, he was one of the people signing autographs there, and I didn't know. It's just like he was asking me all about my book, and I just think that was really, just those connections that you can make at those places.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of, so you're pretty active on I always forget the name of the group, but 20K, 50 to 20K or something.
20 books to 50K, yeah.
20 books to 50K. I don't know why I can't remember the name. You're pretty active there. They have their big event in Las Vegas in just a couple weeks, right?
Yep.
Is that something that you would go to or have gone to, or what's your...
So I've gone to two of them. I went to the last 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
And I actually got to go to a more intensive learning time with Craig Martell, who puts those on. Cool. And that was in the March in between the two that I went to.
Yeah.
It was just 10 authors with Craig.
Wow.
And he was just teaching us and we were learning from him. It was pretty awesome. So I got to know him better.
That is so cool.
And then, so this year I'm actually not going to 20 books just because I have to take a whole week off of school.
Yeah.
So I decided to do Superstars in Colorado Springs, which is 3 days off of school instead of 5.
Yeah.
And Craig is actually going to be at that one too.
Oh, so. Cool. Okay. So you still get the opportunity to rub elbows. I've heard that is a particularly great place to go to have positive networking. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. So it'll be my first time at this one.
Very cool. I have so much learning to do. There's so many things out there that I didn't know existed. So many opportunities to sell books. It is absolutely true that there's abundance. Have you ever felt like you want to keep these things a secret because you don't want too many authors to start doing it? Is there ever a sense of like an event is oversaturated with authors? Have you seen that at all?
Not really. Not really. Yeah. Not the smaller events. I feel like the Fan Expo, there's a lot of authors there.
Absolutely. And so at that point,
you have a lot of competition when you're there.
Yeah. You want your voice to be loud and unique. I'm just trying
and
to spit fire.
My covers have to stand out. Exactly, I had a friend of mine from that small group that we did, and he said to me, he goes, I can definitely tell what your brand is. He's That's like, just awesome. Looking at your covers, I can tell. So that was pretty neat.
That's really cool.
I think branding's important.
Branding's very important, and it's difficult. I just had a very long conversation with a friend and frenemy of mine. He's been on the podcast a couple times, Thomas J. Beleza. I called him just privately the other day because of the project I'm working on. And he keeps going back and saying, branding, stop trying to sell stuff, brand yourself. He's like, it might not work quite as quickly, but when they hook the brand, then they're in. And if you really focus on that, you win. So,
right. It goes back to that, when you have that reader that really, digs their claws into your books, they really love them, but you need to multiply that, you know? And it's like, how do you multiply that?
That's great. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So and one question
that you're exploring in this podcast is how do you multiply those readers?
Exactly. That's the biggest question for me. And I think when I have a better feeling for how you take a reader and turn them into a super fan, then I really start to see the growth go exponential. Real quick, going back to the book covers, do you actually design your book covers thinking about what people are going to see from maybe 6 feet away as they're walking down an aisle? Has that come into your mind at this point? Or, yeah.
It hasn't so much.
Okay.
No. One of my series actually does pretty well at live events, but I don't feel like it does as well online.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it's like they can't get the full scope of the cover just looking at it online. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have another series that is my bestseller online.
Yeah.
And they sell pretty well. It's pretty even at book conventions.
Yeah.
One of mine sells probably the best because I have a banner for it. I think people see the banner and they're like, oh, I want to see where that book is.
Yeah. This did remind me of 2 questions I had, and I want to be respectful of your time as well. So if I need to cut off, just, give me a thumbs up or whatever. Okay. So pitch is my first question. Do you actually rehearse or have a pitch that you're going to use with people when they come over? So let's start there.
2 of my series, I have a really good pitch for.
Yeah.
One of them, my newest one, I'm still trying to work that out.
Sure.
Because it's actually a prequel series to one of the books in my other series. And that series I have a really good pitch for. So what I try to tell people, I'm like, oh, these 3 characters are in their 40s in this book, but this is when they were teenagers and they had bad blood between them. So if you want more of an emotional experience, you buy this series first.
Yeah.
I just try to tell them that, but it's not really what the story's about, Yeah. So I just have to refine that. I need to be better at it.
Yeah, pitching is really, really difficult. I think that I've always had a hard time writing the blurbs for the back matter of my novels, and even the descriptions, like the book descriptions on Amazon, baffle me because, well, I'm just pretty crappy at writing them. That's the truth. I don't think that way. When I think about the book, I know the movements. I do think a little bit about 3-act structure. I think about the beats, all of the lines of tension, how I resolve those things. I do get pretty technical about the way that I write. But when it comes to trying to summarize a whole book in 2 paragraphs, I have no brain for it whatsoever at all. And that translates over into pitches. It's really difficult to be like, what are the 3 really captivating things about this book or this series that if I say them, people will be like, yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Trying to come up with that. Are you more of a plotter then?
So the funny thing is, when I started this podcast, I was anti-outlining, anti-plotting. I really, really thought that it was for inferior writers. I can be honest now and say that was my belief. And partly by necessity, I realized if I want to put out the number of books that I need to make a real legitimate run at this, I have to outline. And I need to know where things are going so that when I sit down, I'm really doing it. So now I outline, and I feel sad for people who limit themselves by not outlining. However, I would never now feel like they're inferior because you can come up with great stuff, and Stephen King claims he doesn't plot. So.
Right.
Yeah. Are you a plotter by no, you write as it comes. You're a pantser. As
Joanna Penn would say, I'm a discovery writer.
A discovery writer. I hate the term pantser too, but okay. So you're a discovery writer. That is, it's honestly, it's a good way to go. How do you do that with a series, though?
Story.
Yeah. What? How do you do that with a series? I mean, I guess I'm curious. How do you discover when you're writing a series? That seems really challenging.
I mean, I have some thoughts in my head of some things that are going to happen and where it's going to go, but I just want to get going on the book. I don't want to sit there and think about them too much,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just thinking about my current series. Like, I don't know where it's going to go. I'm on book 1.
Yeah, that's
but fun. I have some ideas. I have some bigger plot points that I've kind of embedded into the story that I know later on are going to play themselves out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question for you, and I think this is really important for people who are newer to conventions or even people who have been going for a while and maybe experiencing some heartburn about this. How do you decide how many copies of your book, of each book, to bring to the event?
So I made major mistakes in the beginning. So we'll learn from my mistakes. The first fan expo I did, I ran out of book 1 in my best-selling series. Oh. And I was talking with other authors. They're like, oh, no, you need to bring double, triple of book 1 than you do of the other books. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, just because people want to try it before they buy the whole series. So they'll buy book 1.
Yeah.
And once in a while you have people who buy the whole series, but they just, they have to gain trust in your writing before they buy it. I have people who stand there and I see them on their phones. They're looking up your book on Amazon to see what your reviews are,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's important.
So right now I probably bring 3 boxes worth of books to an event. I don't usually sell that amount, but I'm a little nervous about my event this weekend. I have 2 books of the first book of my series left, and the books aren't coming till Sunday.
Ooh.
But I do have hardcovers, so they can buy hardcovers.
Absolutely. Sometimes those moments are proof to you that something is needed. I believed that my books were worth a certain amount of money until I raised the prices just to see what would happen, and realized it didn't slow sales down at all. And that was a moment where I thought, oh, I've been doing this wrong. Yeah, that's
great.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the hardcover for you. You're gonna have
and I
to
did
see.
sell a whole hardcover series last weekend because the guy said, he goes, I only read hardcovers.
Yeah, I'm very similar. If you saw my bookshelves, it's 95% hardcovers. I just prefer the feeling of a good hardcover in my hands. So
yeah,
awesome. Alrighty. Well, tell everybody now that we've gotten to this point where they can find your books, who you think your ideal reader is, and how they can connect with you.
So for my fantasy series, my ideal reader is 16 up to over 100 years old. I have people who read, probably my biggest readers of my YA are in their 30s, 40s. Yeah. They just don't want, some people just don't want all the smut in it, that kind of thing. So they enjoy YA. My other contemporary romance are for adults, retelling. So if you enjoy retellings, you can find me on Amazon as well as heatherkindt.com. So it's KINDT. So I tell my kids in my class it's kind with a T on the end.
There it is.
And then I'm also on Facebook. I have a TikTok. I have Instagram. Not a big Twitter or X person, but yeah.
Twitter is how I created everything that I've been successful with. So I'm really pretty loyal to it. However, it is not very good for selling books unless you are really comfortable sliding into people's DMs on the regular. So it's a very interesting platform to say the least. Very good. I will have links to everything that you have. You said you're not wide right now, so I'll make sure to link to Amazon for all of your books, your social media, and really excited to continue to hear about how your journey goes. So thank you very much for sharing with me. I selfishly learned a ton just from interviewing you, and for all of the people who listened and are going to have the courage to try an event for the first time, they thank you as well. Thank you for listening to TRBM. The theme music was provided by the ever-talented Christopher Talon. And hey, if you liked what you heard, share this show with other readers, because what's the point of telling stories if nobody's listening?